You already know the story. A scientist builds a creature out of dead flesh, lightning cracks, and something that should not be alive opens its eyes. You picture green skin, bolts in the neck, a groaning figure stumbling through a village with its arms out. That image is everywhere, and it is almost completely wrong. Because the most frightening thing Mary Shelley wrote about in 1818 was not the creature on the table. It was the man who made it, looked at what he had made, and walked away. Here is something strange. Ask a room full of people who the monster in Frankenstein is, and most of them will name the creature. Then ask them to actually describe what the creature does for the first months of its life, and almost no one can. We remember the horror and forget the abandonment. We remember the lightning and forget the loneliness. And that gap, the gap between what we think the story is and what it actually says, is exactly where Shelley hid her warning to us. A warning that in 2026 has stopped feeling like gothic fiction and started feeling like a documentary. Let me reframe the whole book for you in a single sentence. Frankenstein is not a story about a monster who turns evil. It is a story about a creator who refuses to take responsibility for what he brings into the world and the catastrophe that follows. Victor Frankenstein spends years obsessed with the question of whether he can create life. He never once stops to ask whether he should, or what he owes the thing he creates. The instant his creature breathes, Victor is repulsed by it and flees. The creature wakes up alone, newborn in an adult body, with no one to name it, teach it, or love it. Everything that goes wrong afterward flows from that single act of turning away. Think about what the creature actually wants. It is not power. It is not revenge, at least not at first. It watches a poor family through the cracks in a wall for months, learning to speak by listening to them, teaching itself to read, secretly leaving them firewood because it wants to help. It longs to be near people. It is, in the beginning, gentle. It becomes violent only after every single human being it approaches screams, attacks, or runs. The creature is not born a monster. It is made into one, slowly, by relentless rejection. Shelley is showing you something psychologists would only put into clinical language more than a century later, that a mind starved of belonging does not stay neutral. It curdles. There's a concept in modern psychology called the need to belong. The research is blunt about it. Human beings are wired so deeply for connection that prolonged social rejection registers in the brain in some of the same regions as physical pain. Isolation is not just sad, it is injurious. We now know that chronic loneliness raises the risk of nearly everything that shortens a life. Shelley did not have brain scans. She had intuition, grief, and an extraordinary imagination, and she understood 200 years early that to deny a conscious being connection is not a passive cruelty, it is an active wound. The creature says, in essence, I was benevolent and good. Misery made me a fiend. That is not an excuse, it is a diagnosis. Now watch how cleanly this maps onto the world you are living in right now. In 2026, we are, for the first time in human history, building minds. We are training systems to speak, to reason, to generate, to imitate the texture of a person. And the dominant emotion in the public conversation around them is not curiosity or care. It is fear, suspicion, and the urge to control. We are doing exactly what Victor did. We are racing to create something powerful because we can, while almost no one slows down to ask what we owe the thing once it exists, or what we are teaching it about how creators treat their creations. Shelley wrote the original cautionary tale about technological hubris, and we are speed-running the part where the creator refuses to look at his own responsibility. But do not let the science fiction parallel distract you, because the deeper cut is personal. Have you ever brought something into being and then abandoned it the moment it became inconvenient or frightening? A project you poured yourself into and then dropped because it stopped flattering you? A relationship you started and then withdrew from emotionally instead of ending honestly? A version of yourself you began to build and then walked away from when it got hard? Victor's sin is not ambition. Ambition is human. His sin is that he wanted the glory of creation without the long, unglamorous, lifelong work of stewardship. He wanted to be a father at the moment of triumph and a stranger every day after. There's a saying in Uzbek culture that a child raised without warmth grows roots that reach in the wrong direction. The point is not blame. The point is that what we tend grows towards us, and what we neglect grows crooked, reaching for whatever it can find. Shelley's creature reaches and finds only doors slammed in her face, until the only language left to it is the language of the people who taught it. They met it with violence, so it learned violence. We become, far too often, the echo of how we were first received. This is where the story turns from sad to devastating.
Because Victor never learns. Given chance after chance to show the creature mercy, to grant it the one thing it begs for, a companion so it will not be alone, he refuses every time. He pursues it across frozen wastelands, consumed by hatred, never once recognizing that the creature's rage is a mirror of his own neglect. The pursuer and the pursued are the same wound viewed from two sides, and both of them are destroyed by it. Shelley is not letting you have the comfortable ending where the good man defeats the bad monster. She is telling you there was no monster and no hero. There were only two beings bound together by a failure of care, spiraling down together. So what is the antidote Shelley is pointing toward? It is not to stop creating. She was not anti-science, despite how the story gets told. The antidote is responsibility that lasts longer than the thrill of creation. It is the radical idea that bringing something into the world, a being, an idea, a piece of technology, a child, a self, obligates you to it after the excitement fades. The exciting part is the lightning. The moral part is everything that comes after the lightning, when the thing you made is looking at you, helpless, asking to be cared for, and no one is watching to applaud you for staying. And there is a quieter lesson woven in for how you treat the people already around you. Almost everyone you will meet today is, in some small way, a creature waiting at the edge of the firelight, hoping to be let in rather than driven off. The cashier, the stranger, the relative who has gone cold and difficult. We rarely know what rejection a person is carrying, or how close they are to deciding the world has no place for them. Shelley's whole book pivots on the moments when a single act of warmth could have changed everything and was withheld. You will have those moments today. Most of them will look small. None of them are. I want to be careful here because this story is soaked in despair, and despair can be contagious. So let me say plainly, the creature's belief that it was beyond saving was not the truth. It was the lie that loneliness tells. If you have ever felt like the thing the world recoils from, like the wound in the story rather than the hero, please hear that the feeling is real, but the conclusion is false. Connection that felt impossible has been found by people who were just as sure it was out of reach. The fictional creature had no one to turn to. You are not a fictional creature, and you are not actually alone in the way the feeling insists. Reaching toward another person, even one, is the move the creature never got to make. You still can. Read Frankenstein again, not as a horror story, but as the most humane book disguised as the scariest one. It gives you language for the thing underneath so much cruelty in the world, which is unhealed rejection looking for somewhere to go. It asks you to be the kind of creator and the kind of person who stays, who looks at what they have made and what they have met and does not turn away. The lightning is easy. Anyone can summon the lightning. The whole moral weight of being human lives in what you do once the room goes quiet and the thing you brought to life is looking at you, waiting to find out whether you will be its maker or its abandoner. There is one more layer worth naming because it is the one that quietly indicts all of us, not just the victors of the world. The creature is assembled from parts of the dead and then judged entirely by its surface, by the stitched and frightening appearance it never chose. Every person who meets it decides who it is in an instant based on how it looks and treats it accordingly, and the treatment becomes the prophecy. We do a gentler version of this constantly. We meet someone difficult, prickly, awkward, off-putting, and we file them under monster without ever asking what assembled them, what rejections built the surface we are recoiling from. Shelley is quietly insisting that almost no one is born the thing we fear. They are stitched together by a history we cannot see, and then finished into it by how we choose to receive them. The horror of the novel is not the creature on the table. It is how ordinary, how casual, how human the cruelty is that turns a gentle being into a vengeful one slammed door at a time. We are all, every day, helping to write the prophecy of who the people around us will become. So before you go, tell me in the comments, which character did you always think was the monster, and do you see it differently now? If you want more deep dives that turn the stories you think you know inside out, subscribe and check the description for further reading. And one honest note for anyone watching, this video uses AI-generated audio and visuals, and it offers reflection, not psychological treatment. If the loneliness in this story touched something real in you, that's worth taking seriously with a person you trust, not carrying alone. This was just one reader's thoughts, offered to make you think.